The 10-minute talent rant is live. I'm James Hornick. I'm joined by Jeff Smith. As always, we're on the clock. The 10-minute talent rant is our ongoing series where we break down things that are broken in the talent acquisition and hiring space, maybe even pitch a solution or two. Before we dig in, as always, all of our content can be found at talentinsights.hirewell.com. This week's topic, reference checks are stupid.
Boy, are they.
Sometimes I love these titles I'm making, by the way.
I think it bears mentioning that we actively try and include XYZ is stupid in pretty much every title.
Yeah, or garbage. We go back and forth. Okay, story time. Once upon a time, everything you wanted to know about the world wasn't just sitting there in the palm of your hand. I'm holding up my phone for everybody who doesn't have the video here. You couldn't just visit a company website to make sure they're a real company or see what they did. You couldn't just go to LinkedIn or Crunchbase and find out more about them. You couldn't just visit someone's social profile, whether it's LinkedIn or elsewhere, to get a sense of what they were about. Couldn't just do internet searches and all these types of things. Like, think 100 years ago, 1920s, right? Old school. When you're trying to hire somebody and you got a resume or something like that, and you're trying to figure, is this person even real? Is this company even real? You have no way to vet. How do you do it, Jeff?
You get a stone tablet.
You did professional reference checks, because literally talking to somebody who you think is maybe more legit is the only way you had of verifying any of this stuff.
Right. I mean, first of all, there was like 5 companies. And there was like, 100,000 people on the planet, right?
Yeah.
So
finding someone at these companies who you knew was there, it wasn't that hard. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I likened it to like bookkeeping was literally writing, receipts in a book, like 22 cents carburetor, we weren't hunting down the intricacies of, whether or not somebody's skill set was like advanced or intermediate pivot tables, and so, we were hoping for some literacy and some dependability. And to that extent, yeah, like the only other option was to go and talk to other human beings who would talk to that person and say like, hey, what do you think of this person?
So that's the history lesson. This is where we are now. So full disclosure, we still do reference checks. Everyone still does reference checks, but the question is, why are we still doing them? Like collectively, all of us. Why is this still a thing 100 years later? And there is no better example in hiring of like, this is how we've always done it, checking the box, covering your ass. Like, that's typically why reference checks are still done.
Yep.
And let's be honest, you and I had a conversation about this before too. Like, I've been in this business for 17 years now. I've had exactly one professional reference check come back bad. I actually felt bad for that guy because he didn't have 3 friends apparently.
Yeah. Same.
Like, what was it for you? One?
Same. One. So collectively, 30 plus years of recruiting experience?
Yeah.
2 bad references.
Yeah. What are we looking for?
What are we looking for? Are we trying to find weaknesses? It's a classic human behavior. I mean, I get why people do it, but like this idea of trying to find something to rule somebody out is like completely counterintuitive to all the reasons that you got to that point in the first place. You're holding someone else's answers, i.e. the person that's providing the reference, with more weight than the actual candidate. You don't trust your own judgment. Like, it just comes down to like the bottom line is you're punting your decision to a complete stranger, which seems pretty foolish.
And you could say that's even the best case scenario, because the worst case scenario is you're just doing it to do it for no reason. And at the end of the day, like the only questions that matters is the like, what could they approve upon question, like that's the only one that like, and how many times can you hear, well, so-and-so just works too hard because when they commit to something, they really put their mind to it. Like,
I mean, every answer, what's the person's biggest weakness? Well, they run through so many brick walls that they get fatigued. I mean, all right, great.
And the other thing here is like taking it back a notch. Like, legally speaking, there's a lot of entities that won't give references anymore. There's a lot of organizations that like they're just they're not allowed to actually give a reference. They can at best do an employment verification, which is totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're putting more undue pressure on the candidate to get creative about, like, okay, so your last company, like your one you're at, won't give a reference because they'll either say you worked there or you didn't. So now they're trying to go even further back to find someone who's maybe they're only 1 year out of school. Who knows? The other side of that too is maybe they're leaving their job currently because their boss is an asshole. And what do you care what they have to say?
Totally. Expounding on that and saying, like, when you are putting somebody into a situation where they have to provide you references and their current corporate situation is such that they don't provide reference checks, does that immediately plant a seed of doubt into the potential hiring entity's brain that shouldn't even exist in the first place? Like, why can't they give me the reference? Well, is this a real corporate policy? Yada, yada, yada. So anyway, all of this stuff is like intertwined. It is a legal liability to give bad references, mainly because, like, who am I to say, if I had a bad experience or even like a somewhat neutral experience with somebody, that's at my company and my unique circumstances with my unique team and my unique perspective. Like, who am I to say that that person can't flourish? And I've seen people that I have that opinion flourish in other places, that they're not going to be able to do that stuff in another situation. Like, not everything isn't happening in like a vacuum.
I've worked with people before that I didn't think were very good, and some of them went on to have great careers. Like, was it me? Was it the company? Was it the situation? Like, good for them. And like, it's just one of those things, like, why should what I have to say have any bearing on their future or what anyone else has to say? But let's switch gears for a second here. Backdoor references. This is the thing that's a little bit different. All right. So this is where you and I had a difference of opinion. And backdoor references, for those of you who don't know, this is when you're asking a reference from somebody who is not someone that person provided. So like, the candidate didn't say, these are my references. You just happen to know someone they worked with before, and you're going to ask them, okay, what do you think about this person? And here's the thing. People are going to do this no matter what. It's pretty common. I've said that at least you're going to find out what their quote unquote real deal is. You're not just talking to someone who's like one of their buddies is going to tell you what they want to say. It's still controversial. I've said the opposite though too, in that like, candidates should backdoor reference companies, because at least turnabout's fair play. Like, you should talk to people there to find out, like, are they really who they say they are? But what do you think, Jeff?
Well, so you've obviously put the positive tint. Mine's a very negative tint. I'm not a fan of backdoor references. Full stop. I'll give you your trademark garbage. Look, it jeopardizes the individual's privacy first and foremost. If somebody is passively looking and this gets out to anybody in their organization, you got a sticky situation on your hands. It places a totally inordinate amount of weight, predominantly speaking, on like friendship relationships. I mean, a lot of these are just acquaintances, colleagues. Like, I would prefer it be based on business acumen, but most of the time it is not. And frankly, like, personal bias just plays a humongous role in all of this. So how close were they with this person? Is it all anecdotal? Like, is this just a bunch of corporate gossip that's just being filtered? I mean, I can think of 2 or 3 instances right off the top of my head where backdoor references went really, really sour, and it filtered into like borderline legal issues. So,
I mean, I have a few friends that are jerks. I have a few friends that aren't very good at their job. Like, who are you? Just because someone's your friend doesn't mean like they should have any bearing again on your hiring. I digress. All right, fixes. We'll run through these real quick.
Yep.
First, honestly, evaluate why you're doing it. And I think this is the biggest thing. Like, are you asking references as some BS like checkbox requirement? And if you are, just acknowledge that. You know, right. You don't have to do it if you're just doing it because like you feel like you have to, because we've been doing this for like 100 years.
I mean, pro tip, if you just have like the standard form and that's what you're completing day in, day out, probably a rubber stamp. Think about it. Think about, if you're going to do reference checks, use it for something useful. Like, instead of it being a, yes or no, use it for professional development. Figure out stuff that you can use as a manager internally to help that person flourish.
Yeah, I like that idea. Make it like a teaching tool in terms of like what would help this person, what management style would help them, what resource should be useful. if you've already made the decision to hire them, that is, just
Yeah.
to reinforce like how to make that onboarding better. It's actually Bernadette Pollock pointed this out on LinkedIn the other day. We were talking about it, so shout out to her. And last thing, just closing with like, look, background checks are fine. Employment verification, it's totally fine. That accomplishes the goal here. Reference checks, like, fuck out of here, useless. Anyways, we're short on clock. That's a wrap for the week. Thanks for tuning into the 10-Minute Talent Rant, part of the Talent Insights series, which is always available for replay on talentinsights.hirewell.com, as well as on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon. Jeff, great seeing you again. Everyone out there, see you soon.